All right, so get this. We're going to dive deep into the story of Ned Ludd. You know, the guy who supposedly like gave his name to the Luddites. Those those folks who were famous, I guess infamous for smashing up machines back during the Industrial Revolution. But here's the thing. The sources we've got, they kind of paint this like really hazy picture of the guy himself.
Yeah, it's a real head scratcher. We've got sources like Wikipedia and this blog post called Every Woman Dreams. They both mention this guy, Ned Ludd, as a weaver from Anstey.
Yeah.
And get this, back in 1779, supposedly he took a hammer to a couple of these stocking frames, like those early knitting machines, you know, the ones that were really starting to change the whole textile industry.
Okay, so wait, picture this. England, like late 1700s. These stocking frames are starting to pop up everywhere, making things faster, cheaper. I'm sure some folks were probably thrilled, but for the skilled weavers, I mean, this new tech, it's like a huge threat to their whole livelihood, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But hold on a second, is this Ned Ludd guy even real, or is this like just one of those tall tales?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, these sources, they mention some stories about him, right? About how he was flogged or picked on, maybe even like going after those frames in some kind of fit of rage. But here's the thing, there's no real proof to back any of that up beyond these like stories, you know, being passed down.
It's almost like a game of historical telephone, right? Like one story turns into another and suddenly, boom, you've got yourself a legend.
Exactly. And then there's this other source, the History of Nottingham, and they throw another name into the mix. They call him Ludlum. And this guy, he also supposedly smashed some frames, but because, get this, his dad told him to. Again, no real evidence to back it up.
So we've got conflicting stories, missing evidence. I mean, it's almost like we're trying to nail down a ghost. But, and here's where it gets really interesting. Whether this guy was real or not, the name Ned Ludd, it took on a life of its own, didn't it?
Oh, it absolutely did. Fast forward a few decades to 1812. And Ned Ludd has completely transformed. He's now King Ludd, Captain Ludd. There's even General Ludd.
Wow.
He becomes this mythical leader of the entire Luddite movement, the symbol of resistance against these machines taking over.
So even if he wasn't like actually out there leading the charge and everything, I mean, his name became like a powerful banner for all those people who felt threatened by those changing times, right?
Absolutely. Think about it. Letters and proclamations signed by Ned Ludd. I mean, that would strike fear into the hearts of those factory owners, and it would rally those folks who were feeling the brunt of those industrial growing pains.
Talk about a legacy, right?
Right.
But to really understand, I think, why this name resonated so strongly, I think we need to dig into the context of the Industrial Revolution. It wasn't just about like, you know, new gadgets. This was a whole societal earthquake.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it really was like a seismic shift. Just imagine life before the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
So work was often done in these small workshops, maybe even at home. And you were a skilled artisan, you know, like in control of your craft, your time, your whole livelihood. Really.
It almost sounds idyllic.
Yeah.
In a way.
Okay.
You know, like a slower pace of life, more connected or something.
Well, I mean, there were definitely challenges then too, of course. But the Industrial Revolution, I mean, it brought this whole new set of anxieties with it, didn't it? Think about those weavers, for example. They had spent years honing their skills, right? And suddenly these machines come along and they're doing the same work, but faster and for way cheaper too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a job loss, you know? It was like an existential threat to their whole way of being.
Okay, so I'm starting to get the picture now. It's not just about being replaced by a machine. It's about like your whole worldview being like totally upended. Your skills, your identity even suddenly irrelevant.
And there was no safety net either. You know, no unemployment benefits, no retraining programs. I mean, losing your job back then, that meant potentially losing everything. It's no wonder people were scared.
You know, our sources, they mentioned that some of the Luddite demands, they included things like minimum wages and regulations on using these machines. So it wasn't just about like blindly rejecting technology, was it? It seems like they were trying to find a way to make it work for everyone.
Absolutely. It's about having a voice, you know.
Yeah.
A say in how these changes are implemented. It's about ensuring that progress doesn't come at the expense of human well-being.
Yes.
It's fascinating to see how these concerns from like centuries ago are still so relevant today, isn't it?
Well, you're right. Think about it. We've got AI now.
Yeah.
Automation. All this tech that's like changing the job market like as we speak. And people are worried about the same things. Job displacement, economic inequality, the feeling of being left behind.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are we just replaying the same anxieties but on a different stage, or can we learn from the Luddites and find a way to shape technological progress so that it benefits everyone?
Man, that's a heavy question. But before we like spiral down that rabbit hole too far, let's bring it back to Ned Ludd for a second.
Yeah.
Even if he was just a myth, I mean, his name became this like powerful symbol, didn't it? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's the power of storytelling, right? People need a face, a name, a story to rally around, especially in times of fear and uncertainty, like those times.
So Ned Ludd, this maybe mythical figure, he becomes this sort of avatar for all those anxieties.
Exactly, and it goes beyond just his name too. The term Luddite, it's become shorthand for anyone who's resistant to technology.
Which is interesting because looking at the bigger picture, the Luddites weren't necessarily anti-technology, were they? They were anti-exploitation.
Yeah.
Anti being left behind by progress.
That's a great point. It's about understanding the nuances, and that brings us to a really interesting question. What does it really mean to be a Luddite today?
Yeah, it is kind of funny, isn't it? I mean, we use Luddite almost like as a joke sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, like my grandma, she refuses to get a smartphone, so we tease her. You know, we call her a Luddite. But it's way more complicated than that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if we go back to those sources we were looking at, it's pretty clear that the original Luddites, I mean, they were dealing with some pretty serious stuff. This wasn't just like a preference, you know. They were fighting for their livelihoods, their communities, their whole way of life. Really, it was a matter of survival.
So like throwing Luddite around to describe someone who just like, you know, isn't that into tech. It almost feels dismissive of what those folks actually went through back then, don't you think?
Yeah, I think there's a risk of that for sure. It's like comparing, I don't know, apples and oranges.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, those machines, they represented this fundamental shift in the power dynamics of society, and it's not quite the same as someone just, you know, preferring a good old-fashioned book to a Kindle.
But here's the thing that I find so interesting about all this. The term Luddite, I mean, it's still so relevant even today. It's like proof that those underlying anxieties about technology, I mean, they haven't gone away, have they? They've just kind of taken on these new forms.
Exactly. We may not be, you know, facing down stocking frames anymore, but we've got our own, you know, our own technological anxieties to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
Think about artificial intelligence, automation, data privacy. I mean, all of these things are changing the world around us so fast. It's incredible.
And it's not just about jobs anymore either, is it? It's about things like social media algorithms, right?
Yeah.
Shaping our opinions, like without us even realizing it, or the potential for AI to be used in ways that could actually harm humanity.
It's those big ethical questions,
Yeah.
you know, that the Luddites were wrestling with too. I mean, how do we make sure that progress actually, you know, serves us and not the other way around? How do we protect what makes us human in the face of all of these massive technological changes?
It's pretty wild too how many examples we've got in our sources of how Ned Ludd keeps like popping up in pop culture. I mean, there are folk songs about him, rock bands. There's even a pub named after him.
It is amazing, isn't it? He's become this global icon, this symbol of resistance against the dehumanizing aspects of technology. There's just something about his story, whether it's real or not, that continues to resonate with people, even centuries later.
It's like he's this mirror, you know, reflecting our own unease about the future. So if Ned Ludd is this like enduring symbol, right? I mean, what can we actually learn from him? Even if he was just a myth. I mean, what's the takeaway for us here in the 21st century?
It's a good question. Well, I think the The biggest lesson, I think, is the importance of critical thinking, right? I mean, we can't just blindly embrace every new technology that comes along. We need to ask the tough questions, like who actually benefits from this? What are the potential downsides? How can we make sure that this technology is being used ethically, responsibly?
It's about taking back control of the narrative, isn't it? Not letting fear dictate our relationship with technology, but using our understanding of the past to shape a better future.
Exactly. And maybe that's the real legacy of Ned Ludd. A reminder that even in the face of all this massive change, we still have the power to choose how we engage with technology and shape the world that we want to live in.
Yeah.
Man, that's a powerful thought. And on that note, listeners, we'll leave you to ponder the legacy of Ned Ludd and what it means for you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.